Alright, welcome back to the channel. Today is day 4 of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Spoilers, more combos, more synergies. Today we got a ton of new cards, an infinite combo, potentially, so stick around for that. And yeah, let's see what we got. This one was from yesterday, but I forgot to include it, which is Camball Stern Mare, 3 mana. For a 2/4 Human Advisor. It says whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under an opponent's control, create a tapped copy of each of them. The ability triggers only once each turn. And whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So there's so many things in Standard right now that create tokens, map tokens, clue tokens, blood tokens, etc. But I thought a fun way to kind of use this card would be to play it out and then make your opponent get tokens, and then every time they do, you create those tokens as well. So if you played this and you get lost one of their creatures, you would create also 2 map tokens, and then that would trigger its second ability and drain your opponent for 1. Blood Vial Purveyor, I believe, also works the same. Whenever they cast a spell, they get a blood token, then you would get a blood token, and then it would trigger like basically every turn. So this would just kind of continually trigger every turn whenever they played something. Thran Spider also is kind of nice because it would have 2 instances, I believe, of you creating tokens, because they would get 1, then you would get a copy of that one, and then it also creates 1 for yourself. So some cute ways of using this card. Obviously just good in sort of a token deck in general, but maybe some of the cards that synergize with it that you are kind of sneaky because it makes your opponent create tokens as well. Next up, we've got Rakdos Joins Up. This is a 5 mana legendary enchantment, and when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Whenever a legendary creature you control dies, Rakdos Joins Up deals damage equal to the creature's power to target opponent. So, very powerful effect. Both of those are quite powerful effect. You put them together onto 1 card. Bound to be something sweet you can do with this. And so far, the sweetest things I can think of are just if you are reanimating a Yargle with this, it comes into play with 2 +1/+1 counters. So then it has 20 power. And then if you sacrifice it to anything, that was 20 to the face of your opponent. So that could just be a deck of reanimate Yargle, any sacrifice effect. The funnest one I thought of was Burn Together, because then you would both get the 20 damage from Burn Together and also 20 damage from the Rakdos Joins Up, so you go 40 damage to the face. Sounds fun. There's also an infinite combo. I believe this works. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. But I posted this on my Twitter, and some people were debating if this actually works. But if you have Rakdos Joins Up in your graveyard and also a Hulking Metamorph in your graveyard, and you cast Umbrello's Awakening, which returns the Rakdos Joins Up to play as a 1/1 spirit, then you can use the first ability to reanimate a clone. I believe only Hulking Metamorph works because it has a clone with power and toughness. The Metamorph will come back, and you can copy the Rakdos Joins Up because it's a 1/1 spirit. However, it's legendary, so the legend rule would make you have to sacrifice one of them, which you choose the Hulking Metamorph to sacrifice and put it back in the graveyard. But you get another one of the first triggers to return the Metamorph back to the play. So you would just continually be able to return the Metamorph and have it die, and it would trigger the second ability of doing damage to the opponent infinite number of times. So that is sort of an infinite damage combo, I believe, in Standard. So pretty fun. 3 card combos aren't really always the best, but I'm probably going to build a deck around that and try to pull it off. Okay, next up we've got Kvave the Punisher, 3 mana for a legendary human warlock. Whenever you commit a crime, exile up to 1 target black card from your graveyard and copy it. You may cast a copy. If you do, you lose 2 life. A very kind of, it doesn't seem all that powerful when I first read this. I was like, that's okay. But then when I thought about it, this card has a lot of uses, and just being able to replay cards from your graveyard is always kind of pretty broken in the history of Magic. Whenever you can do that, I thought about just Duress, because that commits a crime. any sort of discard spells, or the that bat in standard that targets the opponent and you take a card from their hand. That would all commit a crime. They could work with Bump in the Night. There's like a mono black burn deck in some format, I believe, which is okay. And this could go in there, and you could just kind of replay all your burn spells from the yard, because each one would, trigger a crime, and then you could play the next one and play the next one. In Timeless, you also have Dark Ritual, so you could kind of just like turn one play this, then turn two like Duress, and then something else, and get the Duress back. Oh, get the Dark Ritual back, cast the Dark Ritual again, and then kind of just like keep going. So I think Karavek has a lot of potential in many formats to do some pretty powerful things. We'll see what happens. Next up, we've got Lila, Undefeated Slickshot, a 3 mana for 3/3 prowess. Whenever you cast a multicolor instant or sorcery spell from your hand, exile that spell instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, it becomes plotted. So essentially, you can cast it again on the next turn for free, kind of like Rebound. This is pretty sweet with like Lightning Helix in Standard. And I'm curious about this one. Actually, not sure if the rules work for this, but being able to cast Push on one turn, and then you exile it, you plot it, and then on the next turn you can cast Pull, I think. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments what the ruling, if you're a judge and you know what the rulings are about that. But if that's true, that's pretty powerful use of this. But Lightning Helix on its own, being able to play that twice is pretty sweet too. It'll trigger prowess again. It looks like he's kind of casting Lightning Helix in the picture, so maybe an obvious synergy there. Moving on, we've got Breaches, the Blast Master. 3 mana for 3/3 legendary goblin pirate with menace. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, flip a coin. When you win the flip, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. When you lose the flip, Breaches, the Blastmaster deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target. So there's a lot of ways to create just like little artifacts that you would want to sacrifice to this ability. Note this is a goblin and it is a pirate. It could go into either one of those decks as well. So we got your Spyglass Siren, which is a pirate and creates a map token. But I was thinking of like, okay, what could we really do that would be cool with this card? Because sometimes you want to lose the flip, right? And if you lost the flip with a Shadow of Mortality, it'd do 15 to something. You'd have to be at low amount of life, and it had to be the second spell you cast. But it's not impossible. If you had this on turn 3, if your life total was low enough, you played Spyglass Siren on that turn, and then you use the artifact to sacrifice when you played Shadow of Mortality as your second ability. The worst thing that could happen was that you would create 2 Shadow of Mortalities, which would be all right. This is a little magical Christmas land, but kind of fun. And who knows? A while back, a couple weeks ago, I created a mana values matters deck, and so maybe this could kind of go into that shell with Shadow of Mortality and do some fun stuff. So we'll see what happens with Breaches. But coin flipping cards, probably not the most competitive, but definitely the most fun. Okay, we've got Rush of the Dread, which is a 3 mana sorcery with Spree. So additional mana, target opponent sacrifices half the creatures they control rounded up, +2, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand. And this last one, which is probably the most important one, +2, target opponent loses half their life rounded up. Now, this is kind of a instant win combo with Bloodletter of Alcazaz, which is doubles the they lose twice the amount of life that they've lost. So essentially doubling the life loss. So if they're losing half their life, then it's whatever life total they're at, it's going to do double that. And they'll be at 0. So kind of a nice 1-2 punch. You can play this on turn 4 and turn 5, Rush of the Dead. If you have Mana Acceleration on 2, you could play Bloodletter on 3 and this on 4 and just end it there. So a Splinter Twin situation, kind of. That combo kind of gets interrupted by removal or counterspell, of course. So I'm not sure. Like it looks really nice on paper, but there already is sort of like a 2-card kind of win the game combo in standard, I believe. That one of the pieces costs 4 and the other one costs 5, and if you know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. I can't remember the names of the cards. So one is the creature that um, you need. It gets a +1/+1 counter every time you do 1 damage, and it's then the enchantment that um, whenever a counter is put on something, it does 1 damage to something, and that creates an instant win essentially. Um, and both of those pieces cost 4 and 5, but that sees almost no play in standard. So I don't know. I'm skeptical that this is actually going to be that good. I'm open to being wrong, of course. You'd only have to play black with this, which is nice because you only play 1 color for an instant win combo. And maybe these pieces are just kind of better on their own as it is. So that's kind of what makes this actually work. But I'll probably be building a deck around this along with everyone else, and trying it out and see how it goes in standard. Okay, we've got one last job, which is a 3-mana sorcery with Spree, +2, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, return target mount or vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's exciting, never gotten that before. And return target or equipment card from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to a creature you control. So there's a lot of things you could do with this card. It's a bit expensive. I'm not sure. 5 mana to reanimate something is kind of the going rate in standard, but not great. 6 mana, to do additional stuff though. That's kind of when it gets exciting, when you could do more than one of these modes. 7 mana do all of them, right? So what I was thinking about was the Gitrog, which would be kind of cool if you just reanimated that for 4 mana. I think that would be a powerful play. We'll see if we get any more mount cards that are worth reanimating. And then I thought about Colossification in older formats as sort of the aura or equipment you could bring back. You could bring back Colossus Hammer, which is kind of nice, and because it becomes attached to the creature. But why not go big? +20/+20. And then if you could also bring back Classification plus Zeatora, that would be pretty powerful. You just fling the other creature, if you have a creature in play, just put the Classification on that. Or Classification plus the Gitrog, that would be 5 mana to do that. And then you could, with the Classification trigger, the tap trigger on the stack, you could saddle up the Gitrog, and then whatever you attack with, sacrifice it, draw 20 plus cards and put 20 plus lands into play. So that sounds pretty fun for 5 mana. So maybe I'll try to build some jank. I think this is legal and explorer kind of combo here with the last job. Maybe there's some other stuff in standard I'm not thinking about that would be a nice sort of instant win with this as well. Let me know in the comments. All right, we've got Caustic Bronco, which is a 2-mana snake horse mount. Probably the first time I've ever seen a snake horse before, but very cool. 2/2, when it attacks, reveal the top card of your library and put it into your hand. You lose life equal to the card's mana value if it isn't saddled. Otherwise, each opponent loses that much life. And saddle for 3. This card's pretty sweet, actually. I think it's got some competitive potential. Being able to draw essentially an extra card every turn, and potentially making your opponent lose life from that is powerful. The magical Christmas land is that you have, you saddle this up and you have Shadow of Mortality on top of your deck, or Emrakul or something that costs 15, and then you make your opponent lose 15 life, take 2, 17. In standard, we still have Ishin, which would double its attack ability, and could saddle it. So if you went turn 2 this, turn 3 Ishin, saddle, attack, and the top 2 cards of your library both had pretty high mana value. Say 2 Shadows for Mortality, Shadow Mortality, and something else that costs 5. That would be 20 right there. So some cool possibilities. I think I'm going to try to build something janky with this. This sounds fun. So yeah, I think this card is jank potential. It's got some competitive potential as well. And there are some cards that also just kind of stack the top of your deck that you could use with that. Okay, we've got Calamity, Galloping Inferno for 6 mana, 4/6 haste. And when it attacks while saddled, saddle is 1. Choose a non-legendary creature that's saddled at this turn and create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of it. Sacrifice the token at the beginning of next end step. Repeat this process once. I think what that means is that you get 2 copies of that non-legendary creature that saddled it, and they'll both come into play tapped and attacking, I believe, if I'm reading this right. So again, I thought of Bloodletter of Alcazaz as a kind of sweet combo here. If you have that out, you play the Calamity, you saddle it up, you attack, and then you get 2 more tapped copies of Bloodletter in play attacking. Everything you do, because these stack, so it does double, and then I think it does 4 and then 8. So everything is going to do 8 times as much damage. So if you hit them with one of the Bloodletters, it would do 16. The other one would do 16, and then this would do 32 damage. So add all that up, and that's a lot of damage potential, plus any other creatures or any other life loss that turn that they would have. That's the sweetest thing I could think of. Let me know if there's any other creatures that you think would be sweet to saddle this up and create a bunch of copies. I mean, there's some giant big creatures, Titan of Industry and such, but you'd have to you couldn't really curve into that, or you would have to. I wanted something you play this the turn you play it, you saddle it, and you just kill them. So that's the best I could think of. Let me know if there's any other combos you can think of with this guy. Okay, we've got Pus Carnage, which is a 4-mana sorcery. Sacrifice any number of permanents you control, draw that many cards, and it's got plot for 3. Cool effect. We don't see this all that often, where it just lets you kind of sacrifice any permanents. So it could be lands and stuff. Not sure if there's anything really in standard you can do with sacrificing your lands, but there are stuff you can do with sacrificing artifacts and sacrificing um, creatures. It could be a nice enabler for the illicit masquerade deck. I tried to create a deck around that a few weeks ago. It's in my channel. And having good sacrifice outlets, especially being able to sacrifice multiple things at once, would be quite powerful. And they kind of curve into each other. If you played a creature on 2 that discarded a card, and then you plotted this on 3, and then you played the masquerade on 4, you could use this whenever the turn you play the masquerade to sacrifice everything that the masquerade put a counter on. So that's kind of cool. Crime Novelist, if you just have a bunch of artifacts out, maybe even in older formats if you had artifact lands out. I don't know. There is an artifact land in standard. So that would be kind of cool, just to sacrifice everything, put a bunch of counters on it, and then you get a bunch of mana and you draw a bunch of cards. Maybe you can kind of go off from there. I don't really know exactly. I haven't thought that one all the way through, but maybe there's some combo potential there. And then there's also there's these cards that really benefit from drawing a bunch of cards, like Duelist of the Mind. And this you can sacrifice all your lands, uh, to draw a bunch of cards, and that could really pump Duelist of the Mind. Maybe you plot this, and then turn 4 you float all your mana. Sacrifice your whole board except for Duelist of the Mind. I don't know, cast something that gives it double strike, attack. Who knows? That could be a fun sort of combo finish. But yeah, I think this card's got some potential to do some fun stuff. Definitely a unique effect. Okay, next up we've got Archmage's Newt, 2 mana for a 2/2 Salamander Mount, and when it deals combat damage to a player, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, and the card gains flashback 0 if if it's saddled, and saddle is 3. So this card seems quite powerful. The effect of just being able to flashback your spells every turn is quite good. We know from Snapcaster Mage that effect is powerful. I think just kind of on level 1, you've got a 2-mana 2/2. If you just say play with fire their guy, and then you're able to get in with this, then you can play with fire their face again. If you have prowess guys or things that kind of trigger off of instants. That could be kind of sweet just to kind of flash back cheap instants with this. So I think that's got some potential. But then going big, you want to like saddle this up with something. You can flashback. I thought of Breach, the multiverse in standard. There's a lot of big spells that you can bring back or from the graveyard for free. Flashback Zero would be nice. Magma Opus could be a good one in older formats as well if you get in. I'm wondering if there's maybe a creature too that you can saddle this, and then it can also give it some sort of evasion. Let me know in the comments if you think of anything like that. Maybe a creature with 3 power that comes into play and gives another creature flying or something like that. So this is an exciting card. It definitely has like a high ceiling for sure. How easy it would be to pull it off, we'll see. We got Claim Jumper, a 3 mana for 3/3 Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for a Plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. If an opponent controls more lands than you, repeat this process once. So you could do it. You could get 2 lands off this guy. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So there's this new bounce land, which kind of is pretty nice with this. If you played, turn 1. Any land, turn 2, bounce land, turn 3, play this guy, then you're kind of behind on land drops because you've returned one of your lands to your hand, and then it would trigger once. I think if you were on the draw, it would trigger twice. I think it might trigger twice if you're on the draw, which would be pretty sweet. And you can get any Plains card, not just basic Plains. So the new Surveil lands you could grab if you wanted to, and Surveil with that. So yeah, I think this guy's kind of cool with the new bounce land. And it has just like, I think some potential of just like you're on the draw and you're missing land drops and you are wanting to kind of just get more lands into play. So yeah, maybe with like some landfall triggers. Who knows? I think it's got potential with that bounce land. We got the Stoic Sphinx, which is a 4 mana 5/3 flash flying and hexproof as long as you haven't cast a spell this turn. So the turn you cast this guy, he doesn't have hexproof, but you can cast him like on your opponent's end step, which is kind of cool. And just then he has hexproof basically for the rest of the game if you don't cast anything, which is the trick. I thought Cloudstone Kieran would be a cute one. I always think of like, okay, there hasn't really been that many creatures that have unconditional hexproof that are kind of easy to get into play, and this one kind of does. So you could play the Kieran on 3, and then end step, if they tapped out, played this, turn 5, reconfigure it onto this, and then if they have no way to break that up, got a unkillable, can't lose the game, and your opponents can't win the game. So some decks may scoop to that. I'm not really sure, but that was the kind of the combo I thought about with this. Let me know if you can think of anything else to do with a Stoic Sphinx. It could just be a nice like finisher in a control deck, but that's the combo. Okay, we got this very unique card, Obca Splitter of Seconds, 4 mana for a 2/5 menace. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. What the heck? I was like, wait, is that a thing? Can you do that in Magic? I guess you can. It, maybe this is probably more of a commander card, but that's pretty sweet. Like even if you pump this guy up, you get that many more upkeep steps. The best card I can think of in Standard was the Bone Horde Dracosaur, because it has very powerful upkeep ability, and they kind of curve into each other too. This on 4, the Bone Horde Dracosaur on 5. If you played that, and then you would get his ability twice. So then you could get tokens or treasure tokens as well, and then you could maybe play something else again. So some potential there. Braid of Fire is kind of sweet because cumulative upkeep, and you get 2 more upkeeps. Anything that pumps its power is sweet in combination with that. It's kind of a lot of work to do, but I don't know. Maybe, and it really depends kind of what cards they print. If they print more things that are really good at just have really powerful upkeep effects, this card gets way better. So we'll kind of keep an eye out for this. Let me know in the comments if there's anything else I'm missing with this guy. That's the best I could come up with for now. We also got Doc Orolock, a Grizzled Genius, apparently. A 2-mana, 2/3 legendary bear druid. So you can only have one of these guys in play. I think I see why they made it legendary. Spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast. Wow. Plotting cards from your hand cost 2 less to cast. So usually these kinds of bears that reduce effects, they only typically reduce the mana by 1. This reduces the mana by 2, which is definitely notable. And so there's a lot of things I think you could do with this. So impulse draws, red has a lot of abilities that make you exile the top cards of your library. So then those would cost 2 less. So like Seek the Beast, but also adventure cards are pretty good with it because those go to exile. So Question Druid kind of has a lot of synergy just with this card in general. Of course, it says plotting cards, so you could play this on 2, and then Magical Christmas Land, you like plot 3 Outcaster Trailblazers from your hand because they each cost only 1 mana, and then the next turn you play all 3 of them, and then they all trigger from each other. You get mana from them, you draw a bunch of cards, and then you plot a whole bunch of other things from your hand. I don't know. That sounds fun and could be pretty powerful. You could pull that off. And there's this new card, Laughing Jasper Flint, which lets you kind of exile cards from your opponent's library and play those. So this would reduce that. So I think this has a lot of kind of potential to be. Seems pretty broken. Making things reduce their cost by 2 is a big deal. So I'll take a look through some more kind of cards and see what other plotting cards we have. Or just if we want to kind of go the exile route, or maybe just both. Playing this on turn 2 could lead to some pretty powerful turn 3 plays. Okay, another uncommon Demonic Ruckus for a 2-mana aura. If enchanted creature gets +1/+1, has menace and trample, and when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. Plot for 1. So this is the first card we've gotten that has plot 1. And I thought this actually works with a lot of things. This is kind of interesting. Whenever you can play a card for free, even if this isn't super impactful, there's definitely some things that you can do. And there's a lot of cards that in this set that want you to play a second spell, like Malcolm, for example. So you could plot this on 1, turn 2, Malcolm, cast this on Malcolm, investigate, attack for 3. If it dies, you draw a card. It's not bad. Anything with prowess is pretty good. There's that new flying bird with pseudo prowess that would be pretty good. We also got this new Ereti, which says whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a non-land permanent and opponent controls with mana value less than or equal to the aura's mana value, gain control of that permanent for as long as the aura is attached to it. So basically all your auras like steal your opponent's creatures if they are the right mana value, and this has a mana value of 2. So you could play Ereti and then play this right away for 0. If you plotted it earlier in the game, steal a 2-drop. That's kind of sweet. Light Pause maybe wants this because you plot this on 1 and then you play Light Pause on 2 and then you cast it. And because its mana cost is 2, you can get another aura that has a mana cost of 2. And just kind of suit up your Light Pause pretty quickly that way. And then there's this sort of red-white 10th District Legionnaire style deck where you want to target your the heroic deck in Explorer. So maybe that wants this. I'm not sure. But I think this card actually has a lot of potential to go into different decks that want this effect. Okay, next up we've got the Cactus Folkshot. This guy's sweet. A 4-mana plant mercenary. 4/4 reach ward 2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, other creatures you control with power 4 or greater gain trample and haste until end of turn. If you haven't you haven't realized, I love Yargle. It obviously goes into a lot of different combo decks. I think this is like one of the sweetest effects with Yargle is just to give him trample and haste because he's got such huge power. That's really what he needs. So if you played this on 4 and then you played Yargle on 6, it would give it trample and haste right away, and then you could attack with both of them for lethal damage. So maybe there's something there. Okay, we've got a few more uncommons. The Luxurious Locomotive, which is a 5-mana 6/5, and it says whenever it attacks, create a treasure token for each creature that crewed it. Crew 1, activate only once each turn. So creatures that can give this haste right away, like Reckless Stormseeker, are pretty good. This has the potential to create a ton of treasure tokens if you just have like some creature tokens lying around and you play this, give it haste, and crew it up with everything, and then you put, I don't know, 4 or 5 treasure tokens into play. And then I was like, okay, then maybe you go and play the Great Train Heist. There's a lot of synergy there because then you get to untap it again and attack again, and then you get more treasure tokens. Who knows? There's some flavor win there with the Great Train Heist and the Locomotive as well. So maybe they want you to play those two cards together. It's a little janky, but that's kind of what I was thinking of with this card. And then we've got Gold Rush, a 2-mana, create a treasure token, instant until end of turn. Up to 1 target creature gets +2/+2 for each treasure you control. I thought Gold Hound would be kind of sweet because it is a treasure. You could play it on 1, play this on 2, attack for 5, get a treasure. It's not bad. If you had more Gold Hounds out, obviously it starts scaling. The more treasures, there's a lot of things that make treasure in standard. So maybe there's some like treasure aggro deck that this wants it to be in. And then you got the Magical Christmas Land of Hit the Motherload, 7 mana. If you discovered into this thing, you would create 8 treasure tokens, and it would create 1, so it would give something +18/+18, which would be kind of sweet. But you know, that's pretty unlikely, but pretty funny as well. Last up, we've got this Nurturing Pixie, which is a 1-mana 1/1 flying. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target non-fairy, non-land permanent you control to its owner's hand. The permanent was returned this way. Put a +1/+1 counter on Nurturing Pixie. I think this card is actually pretty good. In standard, you've got a lot of things that come into play and make a token, or come into play and have some effect, and you could just use this to return that. And then you got a 1-mana 2/2 flying, which is a really good rate, and gives you some value. So you could play the Spyglass on turn 1, and then turn 2, you could either play this and return the map token if you wanted to, just to keep the Siren out, or just return the Siren itself and then replay it again and get another map token. Or in older formats, you got Ornithopter, any sort of free mocks or spells that you could play on turn 1 for 0 and then play this. So and maybe there's some effects that trigger whenever you play a creature that this would want, or whenever an artifact comes into play, it would re-trigger all of those again. So I think this card's got some potential in various different decks. You know, it looks kind of innocuous, but I think it's quite good. Okay, so that is it for the combos today. There was a lot to go over. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this content, I would appreciate a like, comment. I really want to hear what kind of combos you guys are excited about. This set is looking pretty insane to me in terms of the amount of power it has, the amount of cool combos, janky combos that we can do with it. All sorts of good stuff going on here. So appreciate the watch. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you guys probably tomorrow. I think we're actually almost have this full set, which is kind of crazy. It's only been about 4 days, but yeah, we'll probably come back tomorrow with some more combos. All right, take care.